had a lot of success, joined Hostanalytics in 2014, right when they were doing, much less than they're doing now. They're now serving over 70 customers, $85 million raised, call it between a $40 and $50 million run rate so far. ASP around 70 grand. They're spending about 100 grand to get those customers. Again, they're really focused on bringing the really financial departments of these companies to the cloud and online. Right now, only 5% of really folks have done that. So he is in a time machine. They are doing very, very well, though. Team of about 300 folks scattered between India and United States. His secret to growth: I love EBITA stickers.
This is The Top, where I interview entrepreneurs who are number one or number two in their industry in terms of revenue or customer base. You'll learn how much revenue they're making, what their marketing funnel looks like, and how many customers they have.
I'm now at $20,000 per talk.
5 and 6 million. He is hell-bent on global domination. We just broke our 100,000 units sold mark.
And I'm your host, Nathan Latka. Many of you listening right now don't have time to listen to every B2B SaaS CEO that I've interviewed. If you want to get access to the database I've created with year-over-year growth rates, customer accounts, margins, and many, many other data metrics and data points, you can go to getlatka.com. Here's the thing, though. That database, I keep it to myself. It's so freaking valuable. And to preserve the quality of the data and make sure that the people that have access to it have a true advantage, I'm only letting 10 companies on each month. So we're full this month, but you can go to getlatka.com to get on the waiting list for next month. And look, there's big people on the waiting list. I mean, the biggest VCs you've ever heard of. You've probably heard of them. They're big, private equity, billions and billions under management. So it's an impressive waiting list. Go get on now at getlatka.com. This is episode 778. Coming up tomorrow morning, I talk to the CEO of Foursquare. You've heard of them. And I broke down, I said, Jeff, break down the transition from hot consumer social network to enterprise B2B SaaS data company. This will surprise you, but you've actually used Foursquare in the past 24 hours, even if you didn't realize it. Hello, everybody. My guest today is Dave Kellogg. He has more than 20 years of leadership experience at high-growth companies. His experience includes being CEO of MarkLogic, CMO of Business Objects, and member of the Astrodata Board of Directors. He's also served in advisory roles to MongoDB, Developer 10gen, HadApt, and Tableau Software. Prior to joining Hostanalytics as CEO, that's what he does obviously today, he served as Senior Vice President and General Manager for Service Cloud at Salesforce.com, overseeing one of the company's fastest growing businesses. Previously, he spent 6 years as CEO of MarkLogic, growing that company from zero in revenues to an $80 million annual run rate. Before that, again, he was at marketing at Business Objects for nearly a decade as the company grew from 250 to 4,500 people and from 30 million to over 1 billion in annual revenues. Buckle up, folks. It's going to be a good one. Dave, are you ready to take us to the top? All right, so you have kind of quite a background here. I could focus on a lot of different things, but kick us off with your current challenge you're going after. What is Hostanalytics and how do you make money?
Sure. Hostanalytics is a SaaS company that is disrupting the space for enterprise performance management. In plain English, that means we sell software to corporate finance departments to help with financial planning and analysis.
Got it. And what reporting. Is the name of a few other companies that you would say are kind of in this space, just to give more context?
Sure. The primary vendor back in the day was Hyperion Software that got acquired by Oracle. So they ruled in the on-premises era. And then if you look at other cloud vendors, you might find people like Anaplan or Adaptive
Okay,
Insights.
and now are
as well
you,
as us.
I assume you're probably not doing any on-prem stuff. Are you strictly a SaaS model?
Yeah,
got it. And for those of you
model.
that don't know on-prem, that basically means literally Dave is putting on his overalls, hiking out to the location, setting up a little server-controlled, climate-controlled room, and installing these things manually. Dave's not doing any of that, right?
Yeah, we don't do that. No.
All right, so good. So purely SaaS model. And what are the levers, Dave, that you're using to determine kind of what pricing category customers fall into? Is it like, API calls, number of ledger entries per month? What are those unit economics?
Yeah, it's a tricky space for that because corporate finance departments don't actually scale that much with the size of a company. And the number of users of our kind of software actually varies much more with the corporation's centralization philosophy. So some big companies are super centralized and only 4 or 5 people make the plan. And some little companies will empower 200 people with budgets and they all need to use the software. So our pricing model is based on a fixed base fee plus a per user fee to try and help deal with
Okay,
that.
what's the fixed base fee?
The fixed base fee varies from 25
what makes
to 50K.
it variable?
What edition you have, what size company you are, how much functionality you need.
So that's literally like number of employees, etc. Okay, got it. And then, sorry, I was thinking about the fixed base and forgot the second part you said. So then the monthly recurring is per user?
Per user. Yeah, they're actually both recurring. And yeah, there's a base fee plus a per user fee. And that will vary as a type of user you are. You know, are you the VP of financial planning, in which case you're using just about every function in the product, or are you the VP of marketing who's just entering a budget and checking how you're doing? Okay, so that fixed base fee you said is recurring. I assume that 25 to 50K, is that a monthly recurring or annual? Okay, it's annual. Okay, annual. And then what is the per user fee on average annually? For a light user, it might vary from a couple $100 to
got it. So okay, wow, so big range there. So call it 100 up to a couple thousand. And then who are the? So now that we have more of that backstory, take us back to kind of your story. You've seen a lot. I mean, you were at Salesforce during the growth scale days, you know, those kind of days. Why decide? Like, when did you exit that world and jump into Hostanalytics?
Sure. So I joined Host a little more than 4 years ago. And for me, it was jumping back to the startup world. So I'd run MarkLogic as a startup, really from zero revenue up to an $80 million run rate. Well, what happened to that? I went to Salesforce to try to be a general manager. MarkLogic, when I left, the company right now is still private and still doing very well. They did a unicorn round a few years ago, so I basically passed the reins off to somebody who then passed the reins to a guy named Gary Bloom, who's done a great job.
Okay, what did they raise in that unicorn round? Okay, got it. At more than $1 billion valuation. And do you still have upside there, equity? That's great. So how did you, for somebody right now in that position, we have a lot of sophisticated people that listen to this. They're in a company, they've helped it grow significantly. Their options are already vested. How did you exit that without having to worry about like clawback on your options or any kind of crazy stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, the best strategy I think people can do, provided they have the capital, and this is a function of your capital and when you joined the company, but it's an argument for joining startups early where you have a very low strike price. If you can do like an 83B reverse exercise, then even if the stock appreciates a lot, if the business conditions are correct for you to leave, you can leave without the complexity of having to deal with alternative minimum tax or needing to sell shares in the secondary, kind of almost definitionally opaque secondary market. So the strategy that I'd recommend, and I generally followed, is to try and, you know, in tranches 83B exercise your options.
When you do that, that does shelter for, like, I'm trying to get a sense of when you take the tax hit on the delta between your your exercise price and the strike price.
Right, and if you do this 83B reverse exercise, you minimize that. For example, the degenerate cases, on day one, you exercise all 100% of your options. So basically the FMV equals the strike price, value, right? The fair market value equals the strike price. Therefore, there is no.
Yeah, but there's obviously been risk there because you don't know if those are actually going to be valuable over time, which is why people don't do that.
Yeah, you've lost the optionality, right? So if you join a company where it's $4 a share, well, that's a hard nut to crack. Whereas if you join a company in very early phase, where it's a nickel a share, 10 cents a share, it's like I said earlier, so it's an argument for joining companies early phase because you can actually do that. I
cut you off because I wanted to hear what happened with MarkLogic, how you got out of that. So continue the story there. What happened after MarkLogic?
So after MarkLogic, I wanted to find another startup to run. I looked at actually 104 different opportunities. Literally over the course of 10 months, I met with 2 to 5 people a day for 10 months, just networking. Didn't find anything I wanted.
Were you an EIR, Dave? I mean, were you part of a VC firm doing this?
No, I actually did it on my own. You know, it would have been a good idea to do that, but I actually just did it on my own, just kind of tracing through my network, meeting with entrepreneurs, founders, venture capitalists, angels. I was actually somewhat amazed that I was able to keep doing it. I think I could have done it for another year, frankly, without running out of network. It was really amazing. It was a great time for me. But in the end, I had some buddies at Salesforce who was like, hey, come be a general manager. We got this great product, the Service Cloud. It's our second biggest product at the time. And I thought, what the heck? One of the things, you know, I have 10 years of CMO experience. I have 10 years now of CEO experience. I've never actually been a GM at a big company. So I thought I'd give that a try. I enjoyed it. I love Salesforce. I mean, Salesforce is some of the best people I've ever worked with. So I had a great time at Salesforce. I learned a lot about SaaS at Salesforce. I learned many things there, so it was a great experience. But in the end, for me, my heart's really in the smaller company. So the other thing I learned is that, you know, for me, I much prefer to be running a smaller company.
So how did you meet the Hostanalytics founders? How did you get into that company in 2014?
Sure. So the way I found them was actually through, as often in Silicon Valley, was through a common friend who had worked with the business objects back in the day, and he had joined the board of directors of Host several years earlier.
He's a VC.
And he mentioned to me that they were in the market. He's actually an independent director. He's an operating guy like me. And he mentioned, hey, they were contemplating a CEO search. They were starting out a search. And he told me, all the good things about the company. So I came and interviewed, and it met my criteria.
Which was what? I mean, what was the revenue run rate at that point, or whatever your key metrics were?
Sure. So I think it was, let's just say plus or minus 10 in ARR. And to me, that's an important criteria because, you can get to 1 million with a bad idea. It's hard to get to 10 with a bad idea, right? So it's kind of a rite of passage to say there's a lot of risk taken out of it. If you can, get to order of magnitude 10 million in ARR, there's a lot of risk off the table. So that was a key criteria to me. Another key criteria was happy customers. I did a lot of customer diligencing. Another key criteria was a board of directors who I got along with. Very important when you're the CEO. Another criteria for me was a SaaS model. I really wanted to run a SaaS company and do a kind of SaaS disruption play. If
you're comfortable, and you can give a range or plus or minus. So it was 10 million plus or minus AR 2014. What are you guys at today? How much have you grown it?
So I'd say grow it 4x plus or minus over the time frame. So we're coming up on,
So call it, I won't put words in your mouth, but call it plus or minus 40 million in ARR here, current day, mid 2017.
Yeah,
that's great. Now, has the company raised capital, or they're totally bootstrapped?
No, we've raised capital. The company actually has a prehistory. It was founded early in 2001 as a consulting firm, and for 7 years they actually built the product by bootstrapping. And then in 2008 they raised VC, and I joined whatever it was after that. So there was a phase one lifetime where they grew the company to a certain size, and then I took.
So what have they raised total to date?
To date, we have raised plus 85 million bucks.
Okay.
Million.
And how do you? So I want to get more kind of into the growth metrics around this thing. So first question I have for you, because of your background, you have all the 10 years at these different roles, especially at Salesforce. Is there kind of a unique, weird thing that you've done to acquire customers? So don't say inbound marketing, don't say paid spend, don't say inside sales team. Is there any really you're like, I can't believe this thing worked?
Yeah, I can give you the weirdest one we've done is we made these stickers that say I heart EBITA on them. And if you walk around with an I heart EBITA sticker, you'll be amazed it comes up to you and talks to you. And we've won business literally for the cost of a 75-cent sticker. I met a CFO of a public company in a restaurant. One of my guys met a CFO of a public company in a bar. People just come up and start talking to you, and wow, 75 cents.
Can you actually credit one of your closed customers back to them saying hi at a restaurant because of that sticker? Oh my God, I love that. Yeah. Do you have one of the stickers near you? Can you hold one up? Is it close by or no?
I do.
I freaking love this. And these cost you 75 cents to make. Oh my gosh. Yeah, because the only people that are going to come up to you with an I heart EBITA sticker are the freaking nerds that are going to be your customers, right? You have to be a little weird to love EBITA.
Absolutely. That's why it works so well, which is literally you're never going to get an unqualified lead off the sticker. Right?
How much have you spent on stickers, would you say, over the past 5 years?
Oh, not that much. I don't know, a couple $1,000. I mean,
that's amazing. Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Okay, talk to me in terms of customers. How many customers are you serving today? Okay, and do you see kind of the 80-20 kind of Pareto's principle in this? In other words, 80% of these customers, 20% of these customers make up 80% of your revenue?
No, I'd not say that. No, not at all. I'd say we're a little bit. Yeah, we're not 80-20. I'd say we're almost bimodal. We have an inside sales team that sells to smaller businesses, and we have an enterprise sales team that sells to enterprise businesses. So we kind of have kind of two humps in our distribution.
Interesting. But you'd say they're pretty equal. You kind of run them as two different cohorts.
Yeah, we run them as two different cohorts, different sales forces, and they're roughly about half the business each, to be honest. About half is enterprise side.
Okay, interesting. And you said, again, we're obviously plus or minus here. We're talking in ranges in terms of numbers, but you said earlier, you're somewhere called between 40 and 50 million bucks in ARR. If I divide that by 12, you're somewhere around 3.7 million bucks in MRR with 700 customers. Each one's paying you somewhere around $5 grand per month. Is that about accurate?
If you do the math on what I said, the ASP aggregated is around $70K a year.
Yep.
I work in ARR,
Yep.
not M. Sorry.
That's okay. No, that seems about right. So if I take that, $5,300 in MRR multiplied times that 12, that gets much closer. Actually, about 64 grand in ASP. So close to that 70 grand you just articulated. Interesting. So do you require that folks are paying up front? That's how you make sure you don't have any cash gap issues?
It varies. I think one of the trickier issues in SaaS is payment terms. Some people, Salesforce started out monthly back in the day. Some people do quarterly. We do annual, and we will take either a 1-year prepay. We'll also take a longer term prepay if the customer wants to do it. And there's some math in there that I think, basically, if you're giving a discount smaller than your churn rate for a multi-year prepay, everybody wins.
That's really smart. What is your churn currently, monthly or annual?
Yeah, we look at it annually. I'd say plus or minus 15%.
And that's customer, not revenue.
Range, and that's obviously on either logos or ARR,
equal.
it's similar, and that's pre-upsell. Yeah, I'd say similar.
Dave, that's actually very surprising to me for a company your size. Usually a company doing the kind of revenue you're doing has really mastered driving expansion ARPUs over time, in which case churn, customer logo churn is usually much higher than actually revenue churn. Yours is equal. Why?
Oh, sorry, because I was giving it to you on a pre-upsell
got it. Give me
basis.
Post-upsell.
So, yeah. Post-upsell is negative. It's negative
very cool.
digits,
And then what are you spending to acquire a new customer on average?
$150, I'd say typically in a bad quarter, $2. In a good quarter, we can beat the $150.
Wait, hold on. You're paying $150 for $1 of new ARR? Okay.
It's so $150 for $1.
I was going to say, guys, it's so funny.
Customer,
Depending on the kind of CEO I'm talking to, obviously this is a very mature company. They'll give answers, Dave, in different things. So, I knew immediately what we were talking about because that's very traditional at companies your size. But other people would go, $150 for a new $5,000 per month customer? What is Dave smoking?
Sorry.
Got it. Now I'm going to try and do the math and figure out what that is per customer. So if 70K. So you're spending about 70 grand for a new customer.
I think 1.5 times 70.
Okay, more than 70, between 70 and 100.
Actually,
Okay, interesting. And what's your people breakdown look like? What's your team size, and how many of them are inside sales versus engineering?
Sure. So we have 300 people, about plus or minus again. About 100 are in India. So the company was actually co-founded in the U.S. and in India. So we have a big employees. These are not outsourced people. These are Hostanalytics employees with stock options, yada yada. So we got about 100 people in India, 200 people in the U.S. I'd say I'm probably not gonna foot the numbers out correctly, but I'd say the Salesforce is 60 to 80.
And all those salespeople are in the States?
Yeah, and that includes sales management and sales support and SDRs and sales.
And where in the U.S. are you?
Blah, blah, blah. We're in Redwood Shores.
Very cool. So that good old California. And then talk to me, obviously this is this is way more art than science, but what do you assume the lifetime value is on one of these customers?
Sure. So our lifetime value is about, it's about 6x, 6 to 7x, right? So I do everything in ratios. So on average, I'm keeping somebody $6.5 to 7 years.
Something like that.
If you wanted to do
70
that
grand times 5 years, right? Whatever. Interesting. Okay, 500 grand. Good. Yeah. So you're keeping your number one. It sounds like if you're spending about 100 grand to acquire a customer, they're doing 70 grand ASP. You keep your payback period pretty healthy at around 15 months, and LTV to CAC ratio is 5 to 1. That's also super healthy.
Yeah, correct. That's to me. I mean, the minimum LTV to CAC you want to shoot for is 3, in my opinion, and 5's better than 3. 7's better than 5, but we're not there yet.
Just out of curiosity, what did you spend just last month on paid ads? I'm just curious to get a sense of volume you're getting leads there from.
I actually don't know that number.
What's it definitely less than? Okay, so I thought actually it'd be way higher. So where are you getting most of your leads from now?
We get a lot of leads off nurture, right? This is one of the most interesting topics to me is that For what we do, there's a life cycle for when you do it, right? So we'll often bump into somebody and say, hey, have you looked at cloud EPM systems? And they're like, nah, I'm not in pain right now, or I'm doing a big ERP implementation. So finding people is not that hard. Finding people at the right time is actually quite difficult. So the other way to look at it is if you look at the cloud penetration of this market, it's around 5%.
Wow.
So still, and this tells you something about the finance buyer. Yeah, 95% of all EPM software is still sold on premises.
That's mainly Oracle, right?
We're literally like,
yeah.
Yeah, correct. It's like a time machine, right? Like the finance department is like 10 to 15 years behind sales in adoption. If you take the two endpoints, right? Sales was the first department to go cloud, and finance is really the last department to go cloud. So finding customers is not that hard. Finding customers who are ready to move to the cloud and replace their existing system is hard. So what it means is you need to get really good at nurture, right? Because 9.5 out of 10 people you meet are going to say, not now. Hey, I'm interested. Sounds cool. Not now. So we put a lot of thought into nurture. So well more than half our leads come out of nurture.
Last question here before we wrap up with the famous five. Do you have any weird above the line expenses that throws your gross margin off of SaaS industry average, call it 85 to 90%?
No.
Okay, you're right in that margin then.
Yeah, I'd say we're typical SaaS.
You carved out and said not for the software. Is there a question I should be asking there that I missed?
We have a slightly larger services business than most SaaS companies, so if you look at the blended gross margin, it'll be a little lower. Our software it's a high consideration purchase. People put a lot of energy into it. Zach Nelson always said that ERP is a heart transplant, right? Well, EPM's a knee transplant, right? It's not a heart transplant, but there's still some surgery involved. So in order to make sure our customers are successful, we run with an above average services business just to make sure we get people in the goal line.
Reduce churn down the line, also creates current cash flow, but it looks more like an agency model there in terms of blended gross margin.
I wouldn't go quite that far, but I'd just say, we're probably 80-20 subscription versus service. We're not crazy. We're not 50-50.
Guys, big news. Last month was a huge month for the company I recently acquired, which was www.thetopinbox.com. I liked the company so much when I met the person who created it. It lets you send emails later on Gmail, set up reminders like snooze almost to keep your inbox clean, do things like send auto follow-ups, and do open tracking so you know when your emails get opened. It's great if you're in sales or a CEO or trying to be more productive. So listen, I bought the whole company on the spot, and I want to tell you how I did it. I've showed the deal, by the way, to big, smart people, private equity firms, VCs, and they're dumbfounded. They go, Nathan, how did you do this? We've never seen a deal like this. How did you do this? So I did an unbelievable deal, and I want to show you the income report. So for me to send you the income report, go to www.thetopinbox.com, click the red button that says install this on Gmail. And when you do that, my email will appear. It'll appear in a little Gmail pop-up window. Send me an email and I'll reply immediately with the income report. And you can see how I'm buying and growing small B2B SaaS companies. That's www.thetopinbox.com. Totally free to try and use. www.thetopinbox.com. Very cool, Dave. Let's wrap up here with the famous five. Number one, what's your favorite business book?
Favorite business book. This is such a hard one for me to answer. I'm going to go with, oh gosh, darn it. Well, I'm going to go with Chaos Monkeys for now. It's not the one I had in mind. But the most fun one I've read is Chaos Monkeys. I'd say The Halo Effect would be another popular one I'm reading right now.
You're flipping through your notes. Do you listen to the show? You know what's coming?
I knew it was coming, and I wrote it down, and I can't find it. It's killing me.
I'm curious. Why is a guy like you know, podcasting is tough. I tell people all the time, I don't care how many people listen. I just want to get data and stories as quick as possible. Why do you listen to the show?
I just think it's great to hear firsthand from entrepreneurs. I think you do a really good job of wringing facts out of people and wringing them. You make it very quantitative, which I think is unusual.
And why is a guy like you feel comfortable coming on the show and doing that? Obviously, you know, your people might go, why would you give up all those numbers to Nathan? You're crazy.
Yeah, I tried not to. I may have given you one or two more than I hoped, to be honest. But
we'll call that the Nathan effect, right?
That's the Nathan effect, yeah.
All right, Dave. Question number 2: is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
Yeah, I'd say Benioff. You know, I worked for him at Salesforce, and he's very different from me, and those are the people you can learn so much from. So I think he's a phenomenal leader, and I think Salesforce is a phenomenal company. So I like to look at him.
If he comes to you and writes you a $600 million check to sell the company, do you?
Well, I don't know. It's not my decision. It's the board's as well. I mean, I will tell you, he's the only guy who'd ever respond to my emails with like a Zen proverb. Like, if you send him some really long email and you get back a proverb, you're like, what do I make of that?
Do you think that's some like AI machine where it just cycles through Zen proverbs and replies to every...
Possible. I'd like to believe it was custom selected, but
that's so funny. Interesting. And what I'm curious, your board structure is 3, 5, 7, 9. What are you guys at?
I think we have 6. I think we have 7, including me. So we got 5 VCs, an independent, and me.
Any of the initial founders still on there, or no?
No, the founder's a serial entrepreneur. He's founded 2 companies since, so he's still on some shares, but he's off doing what he loves. Yeah.
All right, number 3. What's your favorite online tool like HostGator?
Well, I mean, I'm a big blogger, so I got to say WordPress. I mean, I use it a lot. I run a blog called Kellblog. So it's probably the online tool I use the most. Big Twitter user. I use Evernote a lot, but
number 4. How many hours of sleep do you get every night?
8, actually. I do get 8.
It's pretty good. And what's your current situation? Married, single, you have kids?
Married, 4 kids.
Wow, 4 kids. What's the youngest?
Youngest is going to be a freshman. So,
in high school or college?
Yeah, in high school, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you're in the thick of it. How old are you?
Me, I'm 55.
55. All right, Dave, last question. Take us back 35 years. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. The book wasn't written yet, but if it was, I would have said, go read Power by Jeff Pfeffer. It's a great book.
By Jeff who?
Jeff Pfeffer. He's a Stanford professor, Pfeffer, and it's a book about power. And I don't know if everybody needs it, but it was not an area that I inherently understood. And it's just a great book about power, as the title goes. And
interesting.
It's a good book.
There you guys have it from Dave Kellogg. He would have read that book earlier on. Had a lot of success. Joined Hostanalytics in 2014, right when they were doing, much less than they're doing now. They're now serving over 70 customers, $85 million raised. Call it between a $40 and $50 million run rate so far. ASP around 70 grand. They're spending about 100 grand to get those customers. Again, they're really focused on bringing the really financial departments of these companies to the cloud and online. Right now, only 5% of really folks have done that. So he is in a time machine. They are doing very, very well, though. Team of about 300 folks scattered between India and the United States. His secret to growth: I love EBITA stickers. Dave Kellogg, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thank you. Take care.
If you enjoyed today's episode with Dave, go back and listen to yesterday's episode with David. He's the CEO of Masterclass, and he gives me an answer when I say, David, will you win the online course wars above Udemy and Linda and Creative Live and all these other guys?